Hi friends, I want to welcome you back to our marriage series. This is our final week together, week number 5, and I just want to encourage you, if you've missed one of the other sessions, it's so important to go to YouTube and watch those other sessions. Pastor Mike did a tremendous job last week about talking about purity, such an important thing that is a part of marriage. Today, I'm going to talk to you about this idea of never giving up. And some of you know the background of even my sweatshirt that I've got here. It's actually a North Carolina State Wolfpack sweatshirt. And many of you know the story that when I was about 11 or 12 years old, I met Jim Valvano, who was the basketball coach at North Carolina State. And I met him, and he had a tremendous impact on my life. He was extremely kind to me. And forever, I've been a State fan, and it don't always feel good. Sometimes it hurts. But Jim Valvano really wouldn't become famous for basketball, really. He won a national championship in 1983, but what he became known for was the Jimmy V Foundation for Cancer Research. And their theme is never give up. And so Jim Valvano eventually succumbed to cancer and he passed on. But millions upon millions of dollars have been raised for cancer research as a result of this theme of never giving up. And tonight we're talking about the importance of never giving up and how critical that is in marriage. And so we're going to look in Matthew chapter 19 this evening. And as we dive into this idea of never giving up, in Matthew 19, the Pharisees actually come to Jesus with a question. And most of the time when the Pharisees came to Jesus with a question, they didn't really come with a question. They were actually coming to entrap Jesus. And so they asked this question to Jesus, hoping that they could entrap him, and it centers on marriage. Now, what you got to understand also, during that season, during part of that culture, during the time of Jesus, that women weren't even considered human, really. They were considered human, but they didn't have the rights that we address to humans. Like a woman was considered property. A woman, her testimony wasn't even permissible in a court of law. And so when the Pharisees come to Jesus with this question, he blows them out of the water. Like he doesn't just raise the expectation, like it's a tsunami of truth that he shares with them. And so we go to Matthew chapter 19 and we read these words in verse 4. He says, "Haven't you read the scriptures?" Jesus replied. They record that from the beginning, God made them male and female. And he said, "This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united as one. Since they are no longer two but one, let no one split apart what God has joined together." So the Pharisees came to entrap Jesus with the question about, is it permissible for a man to divorce his wife? And so out of that, Jesus really blows them out of this water because he speaks to them about being one. He speaks about man and woman as two individual fleshes coming together as one flesh. I thought I would actually do an illustration for you that actually would signify that. I actually have 2 pieces of paper right here, and I have some glue. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take this glue that I have, and I'm going to put all over the backside of this piece of paper. And then what I'm going to do, after I've just loaded it down with glue, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to turn it over, and I'm actually going to attach it to the other piece of paper, and then I'm just going to really just kind of seal it up, right? Now, what I want you to know is what I have done here is I have attached these 2 pieces of paper together with glue. And what I want you to know is that it is impossible for me now, by putting these 2 pieces of paper together, it's impossible for me to actually separate these pieces of paper without tearing one or the other. And so Jesus is saying 2 fleshes, they come together as one. And they are one. What an unbelievable thought. You see, what I want to share with you today is this. Many people have got marriage completely misunderstood. Because what I want you to know is marriage is a covenant. It's not a contract. Did you hear me? Marriage is a covenant, not a contract. Now, living in America, living in the middle of capitalism, living in the middle of a free market society, we understand contracts well. Contracts in business and contracts in many different things. But I want you to know today that marriage is not a contract. Marriage is a covenant. And here's why. You see, a contract is made on mutual distrust. But a covenant is made on mutual commitment. And so that's important. You see, when we see a marriage as a contract, a true marriage finds difficulty in flourishing. And here's why. A contract is simply saying, I will hold up my end of the bargain as long as you hold up your end of the bargain. But the moment you stop holding up your end of the bargain, I'm going to stop holding up my end of the bargain. And that is dangerous. Because when we relate that to marriage, we are saying, well, as long as you make me happy, as long as you meet my needs, as long as I flourish, and as long as all is good, I am going to be committed to you. But the moment something better comes along, or the moment that you don't make me happy, or you don't meet my needs, then I'm out of here. And that's why 1 out of every 2 marriages in the United States ends in divorce. And I'm here today to tell you that it equals brokenness. Because marriage is covenant, not a contract. You see, covenant is different. You see, covenant is a permanent relationship. And where we find covenant is in the very character and nature of God. You see, covenant was designed by God because He is a covenant-making God. And in His covenant, He promises to us what He will do for us, and He never goes back on that covenant. As a matter of fact, you see the Israelites in the Old Testament. They would make covenants with God, and they would break one covenant after another. But God would never break His covenant with His people. And so when we think about covenant relationship, we must be reminded of the principle of sowing and reaping. Because in covenant, we've got to have application. And the best way that I can attribute covenant in application is to talk to you about this principle that is both Old Testament and New Testament. This principle of sowing and reaping. And we're going to go to Galatians chapter 6. Verses 7 through 9 to talk about that. As a matter of fact, verse 9 is one of my favorite scriptures in the entire Bible, and I often quote it often. But in Galatians 6:7, this is what it says. It says, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. And whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. Let us not become weary in doing good, for we will reap a harvest if we don't give up." Don't give up. And so that's the essence of what we're talking about. Now, in the sowing and reaping analogy, there are 2 principal truths that I need you to understand. The first one is this: you reap what you sow. You see, when you plant wheat, you can't expect to get watermelons. And when you plant watermelons, you can't expect to get corn. What you plant in the ground and what you sow is what you'll reap. Now, let me give you an example of that. When you yell at someone, there is a really good chance that you're going to get yelled back at. When you cut somebody off in traffic, they're probably not going to come up beside you and bless you and tell you to have a good day. As a matter of fact, they might give you some type of symbol that isn't appropriate at church or anywhere else, right? Like when I smile at someone, guess what? In most cases, guess what I get back? I get a smile back. When I go to a restaurant, I am really nice to my waiter and waitress because I want them to know they're human and I want them to know that I care about them. But I also want to make sure that the person who's bringing me my food wants to bring me my food and doesn't want to do something bad to my food. Keep in mind that the next time you go out to eat. You see, if you are constantly critical of other people, guess what? There is a really good chance that you yourself is going to face criticism. Because what a man sows, he also reaps. Now, men, I want to say this to you. You got to hear me, men, just for a second. One of the things you need to know about your wife is that women are multipliers. You say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I got a great illustration. Pastor Brad has been here on staff for quite a while. And many of you know that not too long ago, we actually hired Jamie, his wife, to become our children's director. So when Jamie came on staff, she went into the same office that Brad was in, and now they share an office. Well, let me tell you, I wish I had a before and after. Because Brad's office right now doesn't look anything like it did before Jamie came on our staff. Why? Because Jamie, as a woman, came in and she made the space really homey. She made the space feel really comfortable. And in many ways, I wish I had their office instead of mine. Why? Because this woman put her touch on it. Now, I don't want to be too obvious, and I know a few weeks ago we got in some trouble as we talked about things that were kind of risque. But I just want to say to you men, if you question whether or not women are multipliers, let me just tell you, love your wife and show her love, and she'll give you a baby. Okay? Just shows that women are multipliers. And so men, when you love your wives like you are supposed to, then there's a real good chance that you will receive love back. But I'm here to tell you, if you're mean to your wife and you ignore your wife and you're critical of your wife, you might get that back tenfold as well. Why? Because what a man sows, he also reaps. And then you pair that with this principle that women are multipliers, and we get that understanding. You see, if you don't like what you've been getting, then you need to consider what it is you've been given. And maybe if you give something back differently, you will in turn receive something back differently as well. The second principle is this: you reap where you sow. You reap where we sow. When we built this building here, the city required us to plant trees in specific areas. We didn't plant a tree right here where I'm standing. We planted them out there. So there's no tree here. Why isn't there a tree in our foyer? Well, it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't grow. It wouldn't prosper. But the reason why there's not a tree here is because we didn't plant a tree here. You see, you reap where you sow. And so we have plenty of trees on our property. And why? Because we sowed the seed there. We planted that tree there. You see, if I put my effort in my hobbies, if I am a big-time fisherman and I'm putting all my time and energy into being a good fisherman, then guess what? I'm going to thrive in that area of fishing. If I spend more time on the golf course and I practice and hone my ability to do that, so may it be. If I'm a seamstress and I like to sew and I'm constantly sewing, I'm going to become a better seamstress. Why? Because where we sow, we will reap. But the problem is, if all you're doing is investing your time and energy into those hobbies and things that make you happy, and you're not investing it in your marriage relationship, then that's why your relationship's failing. You know, many parents have invested unbelievable effort in their children. And as a result, they have become what I call child-centered parents. They put all of their energy into their children and into that relationship. And then their children grow up, they blink their eyes, they're out of the house, and then the husband and wife are sitting in the living room by themselves and wondering why they don't have more in a relationship. I often come to the defense of my wife when it comes to my children, and I have said something to them for years. I'm going to take your mom's side every time because she's going to remain with me and you're not. I'm investing in my relationship with her. Listen closely. My marriage will be as good as we decide for it to be. Let me say it again. My marriage will be as good as we decide for it to be. You see, me and Lisa have decided. I want to report to you that 22 years into our marriage relationship that I have a good marriage. I have a wife who loves me and I love her. And over the years, we have decided that we are going to seek God. We have decided that we're going to fight fair. We've decided that we're going to have fun together. We have decided that we are going to stay pure. And we have decided that we are never going to give up. We don't throw out this idea about divorce or even threaten it because that's not a part of our vocabulary. You see, it's about deciding. What needs to happen in your marriage is that you two need to decide that you are one. And that when you two decide that you are one and that your marriage will be everything you invest in it, then God will work and move in ways that you would never imagine. Here's the great thing that I want to leave you with today. Here's what you got to know. No matter how much brokenness your marriage is defined by in the past, this series is known as From This Day Forward. So my challenge to you is that you both, husband and wife, would dust yourself off, that you would address yourself with forgiveness and with kindness and with love, that you would understand the importance of the principle of sowing and reaping, and that you would come together in a relationship that's centered on Christ for it to be everything that God longs for it to be. And so in conclusion today, as we close out this video, I want you to consider this question that I'd like for both of you to consider for yourself. Here's the question. What things should we sow currently in our marriage that will make for a better harvest in the future? Could you consider that? Don't be telling your wife what she needs to be doing better, or don't be telling your husband. What can you do? What can you sow in your marriage today that will provide for a greater harvest for tomorrow? There's no doubt about it. The enemy is out to destroy marriages. But God has said that even though the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, He has come to give us abundant life. And I'm praying that abundant life upon you. God bless you.